Oh, yeah.
All right, let's go live. Uh, am I live yet? I am. Okay, so we are live again, and I hope my internet is acting really good today. Welcome everyone to the live, and myself, I'm Allegra Jackson, the Marketing Medulla. I am here with Miss Emma Lyons, and we are definitely having a wonderful conversation today. It's going to fall along the lines of, of course, our topic of this series. You're not broke, just blocked. But what does blocked look like? And we've explained so many of those different avenues in these live streams to make sure you have those tools to recognize like what it is that is happening with you in your life. There's a lot of, there's a lot of things happening. Emma, I was just listening to one of my old series on Clubhouse talking about entrepreneurial pain and discomfort. And I was thinking, the conversations we had in there, people were really, really suffering because there were just a lot of things happening they didn't understand how to get through. And we're going to talk about a lot of that today in the live. So just stay tuned, share it to your friends, let everyone know we're here. But I also want to hear from y'all. Put in the comments, where you're from, where where you're logging in from, because we don't know which channel you're on. And also, I'm going to introduce myself and then pass it over to Emma. And I'm going to put up this this title. Last week when we talked, we said, there are some generational triggers that we still deal with in our lives, right? And it's not always our fault. Like we don't have to reel it in as a blame game, right? It's just that we have to acknowledge that these are things that are happening to us or for us. So when we acknowledge that, hey, there's some things that we got to work on, maybe some things that are passed down from our parents or past generations, right? We have to acknowledge it and then work on it. So myself and Emma are here to help you do that. And today, last week we talked about generational triggers, what you may be holding on to. That was a powerful live stream. So if you didn't watch that, go back to the replay after we do this live stream today. But the one that we're going to kind of bring to you today is really about the fear of being visible. And Emma brought this up when we were doing our, before we got, when we were backstage, before we got live. Emma said, this is really what we're experiencing, that fear of being visible. I mean, we're going to break that down for you, but I'm Allegra, the Marketing Medulla, and I am a business coach and marketing strategist, business analyst, and I'm also the founder of the W.I.N community. So, hey, W.I.N members, and I'm also going to let Emma introduce herself, and then we'll get into the conversation. So if y'all have questions, make sure you drop them in the chat. Emma, I'll pass it to you. Wait, is it me or Emma, I can't hear you.
I was muted. Thank you. I was speaking away to the muted microphone. So my name is Emma Lyons, and I work specifically with female entrepreneurs, and I help them to unblock all those inner things that get in the way of making the money and having the success that you want. So I'm really excited about this topic today because it is an absolute huge one. It is a major, major block for so many people, and it definitely was for me. Like showing up, being visible, and being seen, because it brings up this really, really deep fear in a lot of people about being judged and what are people going to think and who am I to do this? And it can really stop us even taking those actions and showing up. Or if we do show up, this is the other thing, we can show up but really not be authentic and not really connect to the people who are looking for what we are offering, because we're not connected to ourselves. We're kind of putting on this facade. And this is such an important topic. We're gonna break it down today. So I just want to invite anyone, if you're watching live, drop a hashtag live down there in the chat, and if you're watching the replay, write hashtag replay so that we can see you there. And if you have any questions, also drop them in the chat and we would love to address them. Or even in the replay, if you have a question, we go back and we see these things. So this is such an important topic, especially for women, because a lot of women, we just kind of want to hide. We have this people pleasing tendency more so than men, and this I see as a major thing that stops people showing up in their business and for their business and really starting to thrive doing their work.
Yeah, that's powerful. I totally agree with you. And, we're not all there. Like, I was just thinking, where does that come from? And, shout out to the women who are powerful and strong and who are doing, amazing things. But we still, have, even as women in power, have this fear sometimes of being visible. And that could come from a lot of different places. Like, I started thinking about some of the areas where, because last time we said generational triggers, we were noticing that while we were speaking, there were some things that came up that said, well, some of those things that were passed down to us made us feel unseen, right? Made us feel like we didn't have, we weren't valued. And I think that for a lot of, situations I've been in, I've seen that happen from childhood experiences to workplace experiences to personal relationships, right? And when you don't feel seen or valued, you kind of, start to shrink, right? And that's kind of what I've seen. I've seen myself do that in a lot of situations. But one of the things that I remember is, getting to a place where I had to, like, get my own support. Emma, we talk about this when you get into a place in your life, and we're going to talk about this too. How do you know when you're ready to get the help? How do you know when you're ready to just say, "Hey, I'm done. I'm done with going in circles. Let me get the help." Um, there was a time where I had to realize that I really needed that support, and it was where I started to, I wanted to move forward and I couldn't. I kept hitting these blocks and I didn't know why. I couldn't see anything, and so I got the therapy. I got the help I needed, and once I did that, I started to realize that through my childhood challenges and through the things that I was challenged at work and in my career and even in life, that kind of like piled on each other, right? So I never had a chance to really feel like, okay, like this is who I was, right? And there has to be a level of self-discovery at some point in time in your life. Like at some point in time in your life, you have to have some space or some opportunity for someone to say, be yourself, do what you want to do, no judgment, right? And we're not all raised like that. We're not all put in environments like that in our workplace. We're not all in relationships that validate us. So sometimes throughout life, and even in my experiences, not all bad. I'm not knocking every relationship I had, y'all, but I'm saying that there are things in our lives that we have to acknowledge, right? That when it affects us, that we have to say, hold on, let me re-engineer and let me revitalize myself. Let me validate myself again. And so I say that to say that regardless of where you have been affected in your life, like that fear of not wanting to show up in the world like you should, right? And we're going to talk about what that looks like too. That can come from a lot of different places. But the one thing I had to do, and I still have to do, is take time to reset that in that mindset of, well, your validation doesn't come from anyone else but you. So as long as you are in a place where you're constantly validating yourself, you're constantly being motivated and inspired, right? And that could mean it's not just about you being, doing that for yourself. It's also about the people around you, and it's also about, the environments that you go into. So I wanted to start there because some of the things that I think come with the fear of being visible starts with what we've talked about already in these conversations, which is that self-worth. And if you have not built that up yet, if you have not been able to dig deep enough to say, hey, like I've been validated, my relationships validate me, my job validates me, my business validates me, right? And that all comes from a place where you've already established what that validation means. Then you're able to get into a place where you don't fear being visible, because at the end of the day, there's nothing stopping you. And I mentioned to Emma, and I'll end here because I want to hear what Emma has to say. But I mentioned to Emma, Emma, I said, there is something going around that when people don't show up, it's because that they are having these spouts of condemnation, which is something, I mean, this term I'm just like, kind of throwing around because I'm studying it. I'm adding it to my library. And one of the things that it said, y'all, was that is when we have a extreme disapproval of ourselves, right? Or we have an extreme disapproval of something. So that's what condemnation is. And so when I look at that and I say, well, when people don't show up, right? And that can mean anything. That can mean you can show up for yourself in the job that you want. You can show up for yourself in the relationship that you want to get, right? Because there's some things that we got to do to get the things that we want. And those things can be very uncomfortable. But if we're not willing to do that, then a lot of times I think about, well, why is that? Where does that come from? And I believe, Emma, that it comes from that little word that I just put out there. Actually, it's a big word. It's that condemnation of us really expressing that extreme disapproval of ourselves, saying that we're not worth it, we can't do it, we're not capable. Because if that is not there, then there is nothing limiting you from being able to do whatever you need to do in whatever capacity. So I'll start there. But Emma, what do you have to say to that?
I so agree with you, Allegra. It is really like so much of this, it boils down to really self-valuation. And that's something that a lot of us really struggle with. And yeah, it's because if you are presenting yourself, because if you're condemning yourself, as I did for a long time, it becomes a habit. And I think it's kind of encouraged a little bit in our culture, you know, to put ourselves down a little bit, particularly as women. And if you are condemning yourself like that, you don't need the condemnation that comes from the outside. It really affects you because you're already saying all those things inside yourself. And that can really stop you from showing up because you feel there's something wrong with you inherently. So why bother with all that stuff when, you know, you're not? And they can mean we put it off. I need to sort this out first before I do this, or, you know, we find excuses. And also, you mentioned about, you know, beating ourselves up. I think that boils down to resentment. And if you think about someone that you resent, you don't wish the best for them. You wish the worst for them, you know. And when we resent ourselves, it creates this push pull because we want to move forward, we want to be successful, but this resentment really, we don't want success for ourselves. We don't think that it's possible, and that really pulls us down into, and that can be very frustrating. I've experienced that for a long time, you know, where you really want to move forward and you can take those 2 steps forward or 1 step forward and then 2 steps back. And it's because we have this push pull going on. We want to move forward. We've got the motivation, but this isn't about motivation. It's about really alignment internally and really believing in yourself, not on a superficial level, but really believing in who you are and what you have to offer. And then when you have that, you can really stand assuredly in a way that someone who doesn't really have that full belief or has that resentment towards themselves can't really stand so authentically and share their message. So I feel like that's a major reason why people can't or don't show up for themselves. And like you said, this isn't just about business. I mean, I work with women with these blocks around business and success and money, but this the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So if you're kind of hiding out, like a lot of us are, where is that showing up in other areas of your life? The money and the success part, it really can connect with the love and relationships part. So that's basically everything in your life. It's all about relationships and really self-valuing yourself because you teach people how to treat you. And if you are beating up on yourself and you know you're basically in a narcissistic relationship with yourself, you are the narcissist in that relationship. You it can be really hard. Really, we debilitate ourselves from taking those steps forward or from actioning all of the steps that we know we should take. And also you can have this thing where you're doing everything, you're burning yourself out, but nothing is really connecting. And this really is the last place that people look because we're taught to look outside. We're taught to look at the strategy. I'll find another strategy. I'll find another coach. I'll throw some more money at it. And if you're not addressing this core underlying issue, you can try all those new strategies and you'll still have the same kind of outcome happening again and again until you address the underlying issue. So that's why it's so important to really, to do, I think it's really important actually to do both at the same time. So to show up, to push your boundary, to do that inner work, and then take the action. That's I found is the best way, to the optimal way of doing it, because you're pushing the boundary, the fear is coming up, and then you can work on it and you can keep going like that. And yeah, it's so important. It is the last place that people look for when they're feeling stuck like this, because we're taught, and I did this for a long time. I'll try this one. I try that funnel. I need that coach, this coach, and none of it was working. And I was so frustrated. And it was because this piece wasn't connecting inside myself. I didn't really believe in myself, and it wasn't like I didn't believe in what I was doing. I just had this fundamental feeling of lack inside myself. And I really resented myself because I could feel all of this power and all this potential, but I wasn't able to bring it out, even with all that support that was there for me. So this is such a major struggle, like you've written there, Allegra. It's self-valuation is really key for everyone, but particularly for women. It is the key to the kingdom.
It says a definition. Hey y'all, hi everyone, welcome. Just make sure that you let us know where you're chiming in from. But very good conversation, because the self-valuation part, I never thought about it like that, Emma. To really have those just really have that definition for yourself, to know what it means, because it says right here that self-valuation is an act or instance of evaluating one's own worth, significance, or status. Evaluating. And I think that's really important, because we talk about things like, when I ask people like what they want, or in their business, and when I do all these assessments, it's very interesting that a lot of times we don't like to dig deep enough to see what it is that we really want. It's just what I found in my experience. I don't know if y'all experience that, but and I've had that in my life too, just having really, like, being really confused about what I really want. And I think that the deeper we start looking into ourselves and really understanding like what it is that we really want in our own lives, I think that's the tough part. Because what I started to find, Emma, and tell me what you think about this. Lord have mercy. What I started to find is that when I started to do this self-valuation piece, right? And when I started to really think about like what I wanted in life, how I felt about myself. I told y'all in one of the other lives before that I was like, I shouted in the middle of my living room, my old house. I was like, oh my God, I do not love myself. I was like freaking out, because I had to evaluate like what I was really feeling about me. And a lot of times, your point, Emma, that's why I think it's really important for us to have these conversations, because if I'm constantly going from coach to coach to coach to coach to coach, and don't get me wrong, there are some people out there that don't really do a good job. I get it. But there's just some things that just are common denominators, right? And sometimes we are the common denominator. So if we're trying multitudes of things and nothing's working, then you're the common denominator. And when you really accept that for yourself, right, which I had to do that, I was like, man, like, I keep saying that things aren't working, but I'm the common denominator. I keep working it, right? And it's not working because I'm doing something that's not working. So once, I got to that point, it's really interesting how this is really a conversation about blocks, because I was completely blocked for a long time. And it had a lot to do with what we were talking about when Emma, you were saying fear of being visible. I was afraid of success. I was like afraid of like, oh my God, if I'm successful, that means that I can't have the relationship that I know.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I love my boo. Like, I don't not want to be with my boo. Like, I love my boo, but do you love your boo, or do you want to be successful? Do you want to be in your family, diary,
Yeah.
or do you want to have $1 million empire? Like, make a choice. And that's kind of
Yeah,
like
we
where I
think
was. And I was just like, okay, listen,
That's so true. We think we have to choose one or the other, but actually that's not true. That's false because this self-valuation piece, it really and it really affects everything because if you don't feel worthy, and I didn't for a long, long time, for most of my life, I felt unworthy. You you push away success because you deep down inside, I don't deserve that. You push away relationships. I don't want that. I can't have that, you know? And you might be doing all the things on the outside to get the thing, but if you've got this deeper level belief that you don't deserve it or you can't have it or that you're not good enough, or if you're really angry with yourself and resentful towards yourself and that all that unhealed stuff, it's creating this push-pull, this cross purposes, some people call it, because you could do all the things on the outside to make this thing happen, but you've got this push pull that you don't even know is going on inside you. And that undercurrent that says, I don't deserve it, I can't have it, it's never going to work out for me, which was my inner monologue, that sabotaged everything. That sabotaged everything. No matter what I did, I would always end up against that brick wall. And like you said, Allegra, I love the fact that you're being so honest about this because that was exactly my experience. And I felt so frustrated. I went from this thing to that thing, and they all promised me these amazing results. And I felt like I was the only one that wasn't getting the results, and what that can do then, and what that did for me, that reinforces this belief. Oh, there's something wrong with you. Oh, it's working for everyone else except you. Oh, you don't deserve it. You can't have it, blah, blah, blah. And it reinforces. So that's why I'm so passionate about talking about this, because when people leave things lay and think, oh, that's not really that important, it doesn't go away, Allegra. It doesn't go away, guys. It actually reinforces itself and you gather more evidence. Oh, why I'm not worthy. Oh, another reason why I'm not worthy. I can't have that. That didn't work for me. There's something wrong with me. And we just create more and more and more baggage. And then, if you're carrying a 10-ton weight, it's really, really hard to climb up a mountain. It's really, really hard. It makes it really difficult, much more difficult than if you just drop the thing. But so many of us are trying to climb Mount Everest and, be successful in our businesses. And we're carrying this 10-ton weight on our shoulders and we don't even know why that it's there. We're not even acknowledging it. We're tiring ourselves out and struggling and puffing and panting and beating ourselves up because we're not getting there and still not addressing the root cause. So that's why this conversation is so, so important, Allegra.
Okay, I had to clear my throat for a moment. You said everything, and I think that is such a great conversation as well, Emma. Because I mean, this is just an hour, today to make sure that y'all get impacted about this. So make sure that, and shout out to Maryland's in the house. Make sure that you let us know where you're from and drop your comments or your questions. But I want to say this too, because one of the things that I was learning this past weekend is that, and I mentioned the word condemnation because we talk about this like it's like, okay, yeah, condemnation, whatever, like we know. No condemnation, blah, blah, blah. But listen, this is how it looks. This is how it looks, okay? One of the things that was mentioned was that condemnation is like, well, we expressed the definition was basically a high disapproval, right? Of yourself, a high disapproval of something. And so a lot of times we're in complete disapproval, right? We got to listen to voice in our head because sometimes we don't even realize that it's constantly in disapproval and it's telling us that over and over and over again. But I want to say something about that, because if you're facing this condemnation, that we're speaking of, it means that you're really just waiting on someone to give you a verdict, like someone to tell you, like, that you're doing a good job or that it's okay or you made it. And this is the thing, like, I don't think any validation from anyone in any part of the world other than God is going to make me feel 100% okay with what I need to do in my life. Because at some point in time, you're let me tell you something, like, people are not going to be able to validate you the way that you want to, and people can't really give you the okay, right? Because that's why I feel like, to our point, when I was looking for a lot of support, a lot of times when I wasn't really validating myself or evaluating like what I really wanted or who I was waiting for like that mentor or that adult or that job, that manager at my job to tell me you're doing a good job, to tell me, hey, like, keep going. And it's great to get it. But when you don't get it, then what happens? When the person is not there to tell you you're doing a good job, what are you going to fall apart? And that's the thing. That's what happens a lot of times, is that I feel like we don't have that same thing for ourselves, so that when someone tells us good job, you're doing well, you're going the right direction, it's just a confirmation, like, oh, I know, okay, thank you for letting me know that. That's a confirmation. But if we're waiting for someone to give us a verdict on like if we're doing good, if we're okay, if we're in the right direction, that's what produces that condemnation that leads into the fear, that leads into stress. And then a lot of times when we're in this place, y'all, this is why I feel like this is such an important conversation, because what was I talking about when it came to the stress? So stress, when we know that that's what manifests like sickness. We talked about burnout like a couple of sessions ago, a couple of lives ago, and we said, like, why are we feeling so sick all of a sudden? Why do we feel like, we're working really hard and we're doing all these things, and all of a sudden our bodies don't work one day. We're just passed out on the couch and we can't move. We can't think straight, right? It's because we are really not able to get into a place where, we're feeling like, okay, I don't need the verdict. Let me just go ahead and do what I need to do, work through the process, figure it out, get the support I need. And if you fail, if something doesn't go right, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up, right? But I think that when you talked about fear of being visible, that is right in between that condemnation and that stress. So if you start with validating yourself in the beginning and saying, you know what, no one has to verify that I'm okay, that I can show up on any, listen, and I'll say this too, because this is something that is a big conversation. Someone was letting me know that there are just some places that, they just don't feel comfortable showing up. There are some things that they just don't feel comfortable doing. And I'm like, listen, I get it. It's going to happen. Like, there's going to be a lot of things that you may not feel fit in the picture. But the point is that try it anyway. Because there are so many things in life that you're not going to know, that you're not going to understand. But in order for you to be confident in doing those things, you got to try it out. And so what I find is that in my life, I didn't try things and I didn't go do the things that I felt like was needed, because I would be like, well, I don't think I'm there yet. I don't think I'll be accepted there. I don't think I'm worth that much. So, and I want to emphasize that, because sometimes when I say that, I think that may come off as, oh no, I'm not negative that way, right? No, I wasn't saying this out loud to myself. This wasn't a conversation I was having with myself. This was the little small, tiny voice in the back of my head that when I would get ready to show up at a meeting, to make a phone call or in a sales call, to go out and, I don't know, do a vending event, or even when it comes to social media, right? Even showing up a social media page. When you start to get to that place to show up, the first thing you do, if you're not in that place of like, okay, I'm good, I'm not condemning myself, I'm okay with whatever I do, however I show up, and no matter what people say. When you get in that place, you can show up anywhere. But if you're not, you'll be like how I was. I was sitting there at, like, I remember one of my first social media lives, and I was sitting there and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go live. And I was sitting at the computer. Well, my phone. I always have my phone from the computer. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go live. And I went to go live and I pressed the button and I ended it. And I was like, all right, cool. And everything in my body, because what was happening was that I kept having like, little doubts and things. I was like, well, nobody's gonna show up anyway. It's 6:00 at night. And all these things kept coming to my mind in the back of my head. Like, they were all things that were happening, but I wasn't really processing it out loud. And because of that, I made a reason for me to say, you know what, I'll just do it tomorrow. And then when I went to go do it tomorrow, then I had something else come up, and then something else came up. And then, the next week came, and then I was like, you know what? I need to get back to that live I said I was going to do. And then I started complaining about the money I wasn't making in my business. And then I started saying, oh my God, I said I was going to do that podcast. So I say that to say that we also have to recognize that this conversation that I'm bringing up today, and Emma didn't know I was going to use this. I'm talking about this like the whole month because it just blew my mind. But this conversation we have today of how we're telling ourselves that we're not good enough to do the things that are hard, do the things that are uncomfortable, to do the things that are unknown or, foreign to us, is really based on the fact that we're not able to be bold enough to believe in ourselves. That's just really how I want to say it, because if you don't believe in yourself, then you're not going to do things. You're going to have all these voices in the back of your head, because that's all I experienced. I just did not believe in myself. So I want to end it like this, okay, for this part of it, because this is where a lot of the condemnation comes from, because a lot of the things that I said earlier about childhood experiences, all of that followed me throughout my life. I remember there were times in my career where I would literally have to call my mom to know what to do next, and that was just a lack of belief in myself. So I say this to say that just be aware, no matter what you're doing, no matter how you are moving in your business, in your life, be aware of that small little voice in the back of your head. Because I think that even when it comes to self-valuation, that's one of the things that I was not aware of, because I literally grew into the person that I thought I should be. And once I realized that I had to become the person that I was, that's when I really had a lot of those issues come up. And I didn't recognize that small voice in the back of my head that was already there. So I just wanted to say that. I'll pass it over to you, Emma. I know I just kind of like went in on there, but there was so much to unpack there. But go ahead, you have the mic.
That was really great, Allegra, and I really appreciate you being open about your struggles, because I think a lot of people look at people who are really successful and think, oh, they've got it all together. It was always easy for them. It just dropped into their lap. And really, that's not the case. So I want to say, if you're out there and you are feeling you're resonating with what we're talking about here, drop it in the chat and let us know that you're resonating here. And I want to tell you that you're definitely not alone. I experienced all that for a lot of years too. We talked about the self-condemnation, beating yourself up, and it really can put you in a freeze response, to be quite honest, because I'm going to talk. Allegra, was really, I love that you shared about your first kind of attempt to go live. I remember my first attempt to go live on Facebook, and I don't think anyone was watching, but I had like a script written there and I was just reading it, and it was so stilted and I felt so uncomfortable. And yeah, I was kind of putting on a front because I was not confident in who I was and the message that I had to share. And I recognize that it's taken me a long time to dismantle that shield, that that kind of false front that I had, that really didn't allow me to show up authentically. And then if you're not showing up authentically, I think I deleted it shortly afterwards, because I was afraid other people would see it. I was just really, I think what's at the root of this self-confidence, the self-valuation piece, is a lot of shame. It's shame. That's what it is. And shame, it's kind of the lowest possible vibration that's out there. And it will, I'm speaking from personal experience here, as well as working with a lot of people. Shame can really, really keeps you stuck, because if you feel shame, the difference between shame and guilt, right? This is Brene Brown who said this. So guilt is feeling like I did something wrong. You made a mistake. That's totally normal. But shame is that there's something wrong with me, I'm wrong. And I had that going so deep inside me that, for a long time, I was spinning my wheels and couldn't get momentum, couldn't get things going forward. And it was because of that shame kept pulling me down. So you could be the most talented, brilliant coach, healer, speaker, whatever it is that you do in the world. But if you're carrying that shame, it's going to stop you showing up. It's going to keep you in a low kind of self condemnation, resentful vibe that you're not going to be able to show up. Or if you do show up, you're not going to be able to come as you really are. You're not going to be able to come as you. And if you're not showing up as who you are, the people that are looking for your exact flavor of healing or a support or assistance, they're not going to be able to find you because you're showing up somewhere else that's not you. And this is really normal. This is part of the journey, and that's why I talk about business being a kind of personal development boot camp because it really brings up this stuff. You could go off and work a job and maybe not deal with that stuff and go through your whole life, with that shame kind of running under the surface. And but if you are, particularly if you're selling a product or service that you yourself are making or doing or providing, it's so important that that self-valuation piece be really solid because otherwise you're not going to be showing up, be able to show up confidently, not just for you, but for the people that are looking for your exact flavor of guidance that you have to offer. Yeah,
Okay,
I'll
I
pass
guess
it to
like
you,
my mic
Allegra.
wasn't trying to come off. I'm sorry, y'all.
Okay.
My mic was acting funny. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I'm just like, first of all, thank you, Emma. I appreciate that because we all have had experiences like from the times that we started our businesses, from our childhood. We've all had experiences. And this is what I want to kind of bring home to is that no one is exempt from this conversation. Like, as much as we like to make sure that people are like, okay, well, maybe you're not experiencing this, everyone experiences condemnation. So that's not like a foreign thing for people, right? But we have to be monitoring what we're carrying with us. And what I've noticed is that for me, I carried it with me. Like, I carried that throughout my life of like, if someone told me I wasn't good at something, it's like, you start telling yourself you're not good at that thing, and it carries into everything else. And so when you were talking about this showing up and just being, this yourself, because we said this earlier, right? The first thing that we said was that there was a fear of being visible. Thank you for that, Emma. And that fear of being visible really is stopping a lot of us from being successful at a lot of things. And it's not just business, right? Emma's true. Like, think about it like this. If you want to find a husband, right? Because we're all, powerful women out here, and we all like, we have businesses, we have money, we're trying to like, make moves. So if you want to find a husband, you're not going to just be like, okay, I'm just going to sit in a house and just like wait for somebody to come knock on the door. Like, you're going to have to be visible to the public. You're going to have to get out. You're going to have to be in the spaces where your type of husband is. Okay. Let's just put it that way. All right. That's just on a personal side. Say if you want to find a job and you want the right type of job that, really fits the income bracket that you want to make money in, you're not going to sit at home and just wait for the job to call you. You're going to go to a job fair, or you're going to walk into the establishment and you're going to apply, and you're going to make sure that you fit the credentials. Now, this is the same with business, the same with everything. Like, you have to make sure that you're getting out there and you're reaching out in the spaces where the qualified clients and people are. This is from a business perspective. It takes a lot. It takes a lot out of you to really be able to expose yourself to the world and to different markets where they possibly could take advantage of what you have to offer. That's the difficulty for a lot of us, is solopreneurs, right? And that's why we want to not rush, but you want to quickly build your business and be sustainable to get to that I'm building a team part, because now you can really start, kind of, because I'm gonna tell you, when you have a team, it's easier for you to have a business coach and a mindset coach and alchemist, right? Money alchemist, money block alchemist. You can have different people on your team that are going to help you grow. The average CEO that I know has at least three mentors and coaches or consultants on their team, right? They always have at least that. And so when you think about why that is because you got to always keep yourself fresh. You always got to keep yourself like up to date. And that means that there are going to be challenging things that you're going to have to do that you're not ready to do, that you don't know about yet. And you need those individuals to say, hey, it's all right. I'm holding your hand. I'm right here with you to help guide you through that. And that's because there are going to be things that we tell ourselves, like, I don't want to show up. I feel uncomfortable. I don't feel good about myself. I don't feel like I look good. I have so many of, when I was managing social media accounts, y'all, like this is when I first started AJCEO Business Coaching Group, the biggest bang for the company dollar was social media accounts. So that's what we did. And when we managed those social media accounts, a lot of the things that we came across was just, people just fearing being judged, being judged of like what their house is going to look like if people see the back of their camera, or, or if they don't show up with like all their makeup on, that they feel challenged about. But if your audience is looking for that, if your audience needs that, then we got to find ways to present it to them. And so I speak from a business standpoint on that side. From a personal standpoint, same thing I said with relationships, right? There are some things in life that we want. There's some things in life that you want and you deserve, you desire. And I believe that with one life, you should be going after every single possible thing that is out there for you. And if you feel like there are some blocks there that, you have a fear of being visible in certain areas of your life, where, for me, I mean, I'm still working on all of my areas, y'all. I'm not exempt. So if you have areas that you're working on, make sure you connect with someone that's going to support you. Emma's going to support you in getting unblocked, whether it's something regards to relationships, money, career, because it's all about receiving. For me, I'm going to support you in your business foundation and making sure you're the best CEO you can be, because about all the tools and components, so that if you get lost anywhere along the way, that you know where to go back to as a resource. So that's how I support as a business coach. And Emma definitely guides you so that you have the mental capacity to handle the work. Emma, I want to hear anything that you have to offer the audience before we get out of here. Because we have a lot of things coming up for the W.I.N community, I know for sure. But Emma, just as a true supporter.
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, but I totally acknowledge, and everything that Allegra said, I totally agree with. And it's so true that you need people on your team. And if you are feeling blocked or ambivalent about moving forward, or if it's just not happening or connecting, my invitation to you is to do something about that and to take action, not just watch this video and move on to the next thing. Make a decision that you're going to actually do something to address that, because what I can promise you, and like Allegra said, I'm still working on stuff as well, because every time you elevate to a new level, the fears around being visible in that new place or that new thing comes up again. So it's not that the fear ever goes away, but you get stronger and you get better adjusted to that, and you can cope with it. And then you might need to expand more. You might need some help to get to your next level, or to show up on your next big thing, or to speak on the stage, or whatever it might be. But people are out there getting the support, and that's how they're successful. So my invitation to you is to get that support. And I mean, I'm here for you. Reach out to me, connect with me here in the send me a message, DM me, I'll drop my details below, and we can have a conversation, because you can be blocked. And I know this from my own bitter experience. You can stay blocked for years and years and years. are you can kind of just work through it and pass through and grow through it very quickly. So it all depends on how much you're willing to invest in yourself. And I'm not just talking about money here, I'm talking about your time, your energy, your effort, and how much you really you have the desire to expand to your next level. And that takes courage. It does, it takes courage because the natural thing that we want to do is to stay where we are. It's not comfortable, but it's familiar. And, we know what that's like. If you're ready for the next level, then you've got to do some different things. So that's what I would say to you guys. Reach out and get that support, connect with me and have a conversation. I'll send it back to you, Allegra. Are you there? Is your mic acting up again?
Yeah. Yeah,
Got
it's
it.
it's a little glitchy, y'all. But listen, we're getting out of here anyway. So I just want to thank y'all for listening and tuning in. I don't know who all tuned in, but make sure that you follow us for our future live streams. Myself and Emma, we do this once a week to make sure that you have an impact, and we will be coming up with a workshop to make sure that you have some life transformation. You know, to bring home with you and have something to work on. I will say this though, Emma, something came up last thing, because when you were talking, I'm thinking, there's so many opportunities for us to receive, right? And one of the things that I think I told you, I had a conversation with people in my family, and I said, how do you what do you do when it comes down to getting money and things like that? Like, I started asking more questions about things, and there were some very just a lot of blocks, a lot of like, no, we're not talking about that, and no, I don't want to go there. And I think that sometimes because I saw the comment about having the right support network, I think sometimes we have to realize, like, who are the right people that we need to be around to talk to about these things. Find your tribe. Because one thing about the W.I.N community that I can shout out to is that I can find anybody in the W.I.N community that if I want to talk to about something, I can find that person. And we are always building relationships, and that's a level of receiving too, because my relationships have been the actual thing that has gotten me everything else, right? If I need money, if I need resources, if I need support, if I need a shoulder to cry on, right? Like if I need to make a phone call, there are just some things that you have to build with building your your inner circle. And so I wanted to highlight that Facebook user that made that comment, because I think that is so key to make sure that you have the right support network around you, and don't fear meeting new people to find that right support, because that's where you're going to get it. Like, I didn't get my right support because I was just like, oh, let me just like kind of keep my relationships going. I had to actually get rid of a lot of relationships to allow more space, for other people to come in and fill the positions that could really uplift me and be a real support to me, right? It's hard to do, right? Because you have a lot of people that have been in your life for a long time, but you have to remove the old to bring in the new. And sometimes that builds the old relationships as well, in the future. But I do want to also say too that, there's something wrapped around this thing where I hear a lot of people where it comes down to the business side, because we know that business is requiring money, right? Like, we let go what doesn't service in order to let what does. Absolutely. We know that money is really what the business is. Thinking that we just want to serve and we don't want to make money, don't go into business. Go into a charity, go into a nonprofit, go do something you know at your local community. But if you are going into business, this is a different mindset. This is something that you're going to have to shift into. And so thinking that you don't need the support to do it is very self-sabotaging. So I want to make it very clear, because we're going into new seasons. There are so many resources that I see right now, where I was saying to one of the individuals I was talking to, wasn't a client or anything, but I said, and like when they were going to send their emails, and they were just like, oh, I'm going to send them, I want to make sure that my proposal is correct. I want to make sure that, the email looks right. I want to make sure that VIX looks right. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so I started thinking about it, because I looked at my reports, and one of the weeks we're doing a fundraising campaign for W.I.N. And one of the weeks I said, I really want to test out before we launch in March to see like what kind of responses I get prior to the campaign launch. And listen, y'all, listen. This is what happens when you do not fear being visible. This is what happens when you are bold and you're just like, okay, I'm just going to step out and I'm just going to do whatever it is that I need to do. I don't care how I feel. I don't care what the little voice is saying, because I sent out like 150 something emails, something like that. And the responses that came back were absolutely surprising. And it just reminded me of how sometimes we're so stuck in our heads about what it is that we can't do, what it is that, we don't have, and things like that, that we forget that we have the ability to just move forward and get the things that we do, because there is nothing that's limiting us but us. So I'm going to end with that. Emma, thank you so much. And thank y'all for joining us. And y'all, we'll come back next week. My computer is glitching again. Y'all have an amazing day.